Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Losses Above Replacement, the best baseball podcast to grace your ears. I am your host, Alex Clark, joined today by Mathias Altman Kurosaki. And hey, are we missing someone?
I can't tell, man. Are we missing someone? It's weird. I guess
Hmm.
it's only a two-person show today.
Yeah, going way back to the roots of
Yep,
LR, back when it went by another acronym. And
exactly.
yeah, no, Splash couldn't be here today, so all the best for Splash. Again, he's not gone, just not feeling good. So we'll keep going though for the show here, even in his absence here. But if you're listening, we love you, buddy. Anyway, we got a full show. We're gonna get right on into it. Starting us off here, we have a one of the first big signings of the year has already happened to the St. Louis Cardinals, where pitcher Sonny Gray, of one of the finalists for the Cy Young Award last year, signs a 3-year, $75 million deal with the Cardinals. Now, we were talking about this a little bit in the pre-show here, Mac. It seems like the Cardinals have been doing just a lot of bit by bit pieces. This was their big one that really started to uh, put the rotation into a little bit more respectful areas, because otherwise, there's just a lot of projects.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, you look at, originally the Cardinals were in on Aaron Nola, and then Nola re-signed with the Phillies. And then they followed it up by re-signing Lance Lynn, who is coming off a down year. Yes, he gets strikeouts, but Lynn, I mean, he hasn't been good in a couple of years if we're looking at his numbers, really. And then they signed Kyle Gibson, who is also another guy in his mid-30s, who he's a solid innings eater, but he's not an ace necessarily. This is a Cardinals rotation that was held together by duct tape and crazy glue last year. And they needed to go out and get a legitimate starting pitcher. And Sonny Gray is that guy. He's coming off his best year in quite some time, in my opinion. 2.79 ERA. That's the second lowest mark of his career. In 184 innings, he had a major league leading 2.83 FIP. He allowed just 8 homers and struck out 183 batters. So he really looked like himself last year. His ground ball rate was back up at 47.3%. Is a solid number. It's not fantastic, but it's an improvement over his 2022 number. His strikeouts, he's always been sort of a high strikeout guy. And, not 9 strikeouts per 9 is basically right in line with his career mark of 8.7. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He keeps the ball in the yard. So 25 million annually is a lot for him. I honestly expected him to get more than 3 years. I thought he was going to get 4 or 5 years. So they go for a shorter contract, higher AAV. He is another guy in his mid 30s. So it's probably for the best that he got a 3-year contract. But really, I think this is the right move for the Cardinals. They desperately needed a frontline arm like Sonny Gray.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you take a look at the Cardinals overall just last year, they were one of the worst teams in all of baseball. I mean, again, they finished in last place in their division, which was like the first time since like what, the 20s, something like that.
I
And
can't remember. It was a very long time.
yeah, it was a very, very long time ago. But last year they finished 26th in ERA in the major leagues. That's abysmal. So you knew you had to make some changes. And you know what? Credit to the Cardinals, they did exactly that. Starting out by getting Gibson and Lance Lynn to work on them. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's not enough to really get you over the hump. Well, then they go and get Sonny Gray. So that is honestly, that's a solid move. The one thing that I will still be constantly worried about when it comes to Gray is the fact that he has had a lot of time where he just kind of bounces back and forth, being good. He's a little streaky at times. And don't get me wrong, he has had some really good years as of late. Again, this year, 2.79 ERA, 3.08 last year, but 4.19 the year before that. He's been good, but he's also had just a lot of times where he just blows up, and people think, "Man, is this dude washed? Is his career over?" And he finds a way to bring it back. So you know what? Good on him for that. And you know what? The Cardinals obviously see something big in him, right? The one thing that still kind of blows my mind with this is that amount that he's getting paid per year. $25 million 1 year for one starting pitcher. Like, and to be fair, like, I'm not going to give him any negative marks here, obviously, but that feels like a lot for a guy that is, 11 years into the bigs and has had a number of good seasons, don't get me wrong, but has also been pretty streaky overall. This feels like a trying to capitalize now move while still trying to keep somewhat low long-term risk. Because when
You
you're
know,
signed to only
it's
3 years,
come to think of it, it's the same. I think this is the exact same contract the Phillies gave Jake Arrieta, who if was also around the same age. But the thing is that Arrieta was already sort of on the decline when the Phillies signed him, which is so I think it makes more sense to give a guy like Gray, who's coming off a great year, a contract like this compared to a guy like Arrieta, who won the Cy Young, but who had since had two, not necessarily bad years, but 2 years where it clearly showed that he was going to decline and that contract would not age well.
Yeah. And that's kind of I can see exactly where you're coming from on that. And to be fair, there are a lot of similarities to Arrieta and Gray, just again from the age, pitching styles at that point. So now let me ask you this question here. In that division has been the NL Central has been one of the more, shall we say, interesting to be nice
Yeah,
divisions
that
in
we can go with
baseball.
that. Yep.
Well, I mean, it's at least close considering that, there's not a whole ton of talent there, but there's definitely some talent in that division. Do you think this is the kind of move that at least moves you up in that division? Like, I think anytime you add a bona fide ace to your team, that's always a good move. That's always a good sign. But is this enough to take a team that was 26th in ERA last year and bump them up enough so that they're not last and potentially even competing for the division?
The thing is that it's yes, it's a step in the right direction, but really, what concerns me is that this roster as a whole, you have all right, Nolan Gorman, he's young, Jordan Walker is young, Alec Burleson, their offense is relatively young, although you have Paul Goldschmidt, who's going to be 36 next year. Wilson Contreras will be 32. Nolan Arenado will be 33. All those guys are coming off down years for the most part, I would say. Actually, I mean, Contreras offensively was able to contribute at 826 OPS, but defensively, he is not very reliable. Goldschmidt was solid with an 810 OPS, but he won MVP the year before. You don't expect an MVP to, drop his OPS nearly 200 points. And then that
That's a
pitching
major
staff, like
drop.
I said, it's a bunch of guys in their mid 30s. Now that they've moved on from Dakota Hudson, they've traded Jack Flaherty. Even with Adam Wainwright retiring, you're relying on Miles Michaelis, who's going to be 35 next year. Steven Matz will be 33. Like I said, Lance Lynn, he's 36 already. Kyle Gibson is 35. Sonny Gray is going to be 34 next year. That's a rotation that, if there's anything I learned from watching the Mets this past year, is that you can't necessarily bank on these guys who are aging to A, stay healthy, and B, stay productive. So it's definitely a step in the right direction, because I think Gray will be good again next year. Do I necessarily think he'll be, a Cy Young finalist again? Maybe not, but I think the Cardinals still have a lot of work to do. Like I said, they're an aging roster, and that pitching staff, in my opinion, it's Sonny Gray, and then I don't know if I trust the other four guys in that rotation. So they still need to get at least another arm or two, maybe, to support him. Maybe they look at a guy like Imanaga. Maybe they look at Yamamoto. Maybe they try to trade for a guy, but they definitely still have plenty of work to do if they want to have a shot at the NL Central next year.
The big thing that I see here right now with their rotation is that it is very high risk, high reward. But to be fair, they're at a point where right now, there's the saying of the most dangerous men are the ones with nothing to lose. They already finished last year. They have nowhere to go but up. So at
And they were
that
a team
point,
we expected to at least contend to maybe make the
yeah,
NLCS or the World Series last year.
exactly. And it just didn't work out for them. But that's kind of the methodology of their starting rotation. You have at least one big anchor there now in Sonny Gray, but then you have a lot of pieces around that you're hoping are going to return to form, or you're hoping will at least have those flashes of what they know they can be. But the more times you bank something, it's like a parlay. the more different legs that you stack on, the less chance that it hits, the less chance that it's all going to work out well, because you're relying on more and more factors. So I'm not sure how well I like the idea. This is definitely going to be a subject that we are going to be talking about again come June, I think, because unless they go and get someone else, like you said a moment ago, which we also may talk about a little later in the show. Hint, 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 wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But unless they do add on another piece, this starting rotation is full of question marks. I'm not going to say holes, but full of question marks because you don't know fully what you're going to get. You know that these guys have ability. You know these guys have talent. But are they going to be able to put it together when it matters most?
That's the thing. I would say right now they've gone from probably a 70-win team to maybe an 80-win team.
Dang, he's got
And
10 WAR. Wow, that's amazing. Fantastic
well,
job, Sonny Gray.
I'm just thinking is that it's I feel like their offense isn't as bad as this year showed. Like, yes, they're like I said, their main contributors are guys on the wrong side of 30, but I think their offense can definitely improve next year. It's just that pitching staff. I mean, we didn't even talk about the bullpen other than Ryan Helsley. I mean, Giovanni Gallegos. I mean, it's a whole bunch of question marks just all over the pitching staff. So I'd say right now they can maybe leapfrog the Pirates. I mean, we don't know what the Brewers are going to do this offseason. Maybe they leapfrog the Brewers, but I think right now they are looking like a third place team, I would say, compared to last place from this past year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward. So let's move on now. Unless you have any other notes here about Sonny Gray.
I mean, I would just say I think he wanted to be a Cardinal. He said that in his press conference, and I think the Cardinals they got a guy who can lead that rotation next year. So, like I said, they still have a ton of work to do, but this is definitely a step in the right direction for them. And in a weak division, maybe they can, if they make the right moves, they'll have a chance to compete again.
Yeah, we'll see what's going to happen for them going forward. So now let's move on to our next topic here, and one that brings me great sadness. And that is that, again, for those who know me, I'm a big Seattle Mariner fan. Seattle Mariners made a trade just a little bit ago here, and it was trading away Eugenio Suarez to the World Series runner-up Arizona Diamondbacks here for catcher Sepe Zavala and minor league right-handed pitcher Carlos Vargas. And man, I could go on for hours talking about this trade, talking about my feelings towards this trade. But there is no universe right now where that move isn't a warning sign, especially if Seattle does not pull in a big free agent or makes a big trade for someone that makes the salary dump worth it. Because right now, you've already opened up the playoff window. You did that last year. Adding in Julio, adding Luis Castillo, adding these players and having them mesh together the way they have ended the playoff drought last year. You did it. Congratulations. And you were looking and poising to be even better for 2023. It didn't work out great for any number of reasons, but you don't want to start selling players again. Like, if you start selling again right now, you're closing that window again. You need to be adding on at this point. Like, the only logical reason in my mind right now for this team that is supposed to be at the beginning of their playoff window is that you're dumping Eugenio Suarez for the sole purpose of signing someone big, making sure that you have the money to go and get someone like an Ohtani or trading for a Soto or doing something that is going to require a ton of cash in order to do. You already had a ton of money to work with in general with the most recent TV deal and with your with apparently last year it was like the best operating cost, something of last year they won an award for. Right now, Seattle's in trouble. And I will be full on honest with that. Seattle is in trouble because right now you have had a lot of bad publicity over the last little bit, especially with Depoto's 54% comments and what happened at the midway point of last season, trading away Paul Sewald here when you were fully competing for not just a wild card, but for the division. And you did a lateral move that you said that you were getting, more long-term success. I can understand that if that wasn't what we had been seeing done for the last several years and it hasn't worked. You're trading away right now as like fully proven commodities for guesses, for hopes. And with this trade specifically, you are trading a guy that's ignoring the numbers, right? Ignoring the direct stats from Eugenio Suarez. You are trading away a guy that was a locker room leader, an absolute spark plug that no one had anything bad to say about, who was one that the entire team liked and looked up to, who set an example for the rest of the team and still played good ball on top of it. Yes, the strikeouts were bad. I get that. But you also already addressed the problem with the strikeouts by letting go of Teoscar Hernandez, which also something that can be talked about at another time. But this move, especially with what you got for him, this is a guy that took a huge step up on defense last year. We were talking about him as a potential Gold Glove candidate. A guy that, if you had said Gold Glove and Eugenio Suarez in the same sentence even 3 years ago, the sentence would have only made sense if you had put "will never win" in the middle between. And last year, he played fantastically. And yes, the defense, like the strikeout numbers were high, but he was still hitting pretty darn well overall. And you traded him for a backup catcher that has some good defensive metrics. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I will give him that. And a very unproven reliever. There is so much wrong there. You traded a man for pennies on the dollar in a move that can be only described as a salary dump. That can't be the end of that sentence. The end of the sentence needs to be that you're trading him as part of a salary dump in order to sign someone else. And that has to be the end of the story. That can't just be we're trading him away to free up money. What good is the money if you're not signing anyone? Like, I understand, playing the analytics, trying to play that game. Well, guess what? You're losing it. You're playing that game and you are losing. Look at the division that you're in right now. You had last year, your division rival, the Texas Rangers, won the World Series. And guess what? Go back the year before that, the Houston Astros won the World Series. And where were you both times? Well, in 2022, you made the playoffs and lost to the Astros, who then went on to win the World Series. And this year, you did not even make it, finishing a game short again. This kind of move is something that needs to be talked about more, because right now you have to be adding at this point. You can't say what you did last year was good enough, or, well, we can't get better, let's start selling now.
I mean, really, this is just like there's two sides of this. Really, is that, I mean, from Arizona's perspective, they got next to no production from their third baseman last year. So, and then Evan Longoria is a free agent right now. So, all right, it makes sense to go out and get a guy like Suarez. But if I'm the Mariners, I don't understand why they're, yeah, like you said, it's basically a salary dump for a guy who, I mean, yes, his overall numbers did decline. Yes, he struck out 214 times, which is a career worst for him, and it led the American League. His OPS dipped to 714, which is the lowest it's ever been over a full season. Second lowest it's been. Only a 101 OPS plus. 22 homers still, though, 96 RBIs still. Like you said, he's a great clubhouse presence. He played in all 162 games. I mean, I just don't quite get why, if you wanted to upgrade at that position, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to trade him for. I mean, with all due respect to the guys they got back, Seby Zavala is a backup catcher, which also this implies that Tom Murphy won't be on the team next year.
Which is that's another problem.
That's
right
the other
there.
thing is that Murphy is another guy who's sort of a leader on this team. And then, I mean, Murphy was a great backup. I mean, talking about a backup catcher who can hit the way he can. I mean, he's a great compliment, in my opinion, to Cal Raleigh. I mean, that's a great offensive catching duo who can also play good defense. But you get Zavala and then Vargas, who has an electric arm, but he has trouble throwing strikes. So I'm sure that Vargas, once he gets to the majors and works with that bullpen lab, I'm sure he'll become an effective big league reliever. But it's a lot of mystery boxes. I think that the guys who the Mariners got for Seawald this summer were guys who were close to major league ready. At least, Dom Canzone and Josh Rojas are guys who had already been in the majors and produced to a certain extent. And I think both those guys can remain productive. And I think Ryan Bliss will be a solid big leaguer. But really, this was trading, a veteran presence on your team who everyone loves and getting next to nothing in return. So I'm not quite sure what the vision is here. If the Mariners go out there and they sign a big free agent, whether it be, whether it be Otani or, Matt Chapman or Jamer Candelario, whoever it is that they sign, or, Yamamoto, whoever it is they sign, all right, maybe the trade will end up worth it. But, I'm just thinking from a clubhouse perspective, someone else, some of the other guys, it's interesting saying this because it's a young roster, but, the guys like JP Crawford, and Cal Raleigh and Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, those guys will, I guess, those guys will all together, I'm sure, be a great leadership group for the clubhouse. And I should throw Ty France in there too, since he's one of the older guys on the team too. But that's the part that's going to be tough to replace. I think the numbers, yes, those are replaceable, but trading a guy who's so beloved by both the fans and the team, I think is a mistake. I mean, worst comes to worst, yeah, maybe he doesn't start, but I'm sure he's a great guy just to have on the roster. Team chemistry is a big deal, and yes, it does matter if you wouldn't believe it. And I mean, we've seen it over the years. Teams with bad chemistry, no matter how much star power they have, they tend to fail. So right now, this trade is kind of a loss for the Mariners. I think the D-backs get their third baseman. Maybe it helps them reach the playoffs again next year. But really, I'm just kind of confused by this move. It doesn't really make a ton of sense.
I want to make sure I come out here first saying this. I like Dipoto. I like the Mariners organization. There's a reason why I'm a season ticket holder and all that. But there's also been a ton of moves, and that one make no sense, but also two seem to really catch even the team off guard. There was a quote that came out from a couple of players. I'm not going to name names up here, but this was the quote. He hasn't come down here, a player said of Dipoto. He sits up in his suite playing fantasy baseball and rips apart our team without telling us anything. And as much as I want to not believe that quote, and I want to make sure that I'm seeing everything right when it comes to him at this point, we've now seen multiple examples of this and multiple players coming forward about it. One of the biggest examples of this was the trade of Kendall Graveman in the middle of the postseason push to the Houston Astros, which made at the time very little sense. And
I was very confused by that deal.
I was plumb angry. I was so mad at that time, considering also what you got back was Joe Smith, who finished out the year for Seattle And then one of my favorite boys, I can't remember his name, the
Abraham
utility input.
Toro.
Thank you, Toro.
Yeah.
Such a good lad, and I like it, but then was traded away over to the Brewers alongside Jesse Winker to get
Colton
a
Wong.
second. Yeah, I was trying not to say the name, but yes, get Colton Wong. And it just doesn't feel like the moves are clicking. And I want to believe in Dipoto. I really do. I like him. I like the fact that he has ended. He did help end the postseason drought. It happened. I'm glad about that. But we need to see some level of moving forward with it. And these kinds of trades are ones that hurt the team unless there is follow up to it. That's what I need to see. That's what I want to see. That's what the team needs to see. For those of you that follow John Boy Media, I don't usually agree with some of their takes, obviously, but there was one that came out today from Talking Jake, talking about the Mariners, that after the trade of Eugenio Suarez, you've now lost 2 impact bats on your team. And if you do not fill those holes, what are you doing? You are putting yourself in a worse scenario without a team that needed. You need to bring 2 impact bats just to get back to default now. Not even to just get up forward, just to get back to default. And unless you really, really get like hit a home run, like getting a Soto to replace Teoscar Hernandez or something like that, then you're just moving down. You're not getting better as a team in a division where the last 2 World Series winners are right next to you. Anything else we want to say here on the Suarez trade and what it means going forward?
I mean, really, like you were saying, they need to respond with some type of splash. And I'm not. I mean, maybe it means I've heard some rumblings. Maybe you try to reach out to Toronto about Bo Bichette. Maybe you try to teach him how to play third base, because right now I think Luis Arias can be a solid big leaguer. Do I think he's necessarily an everyday option at third base? I don't know about that. For a little guy though, he can slug a little bit.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
yeah, no, I think Arias is a nice pickup from the Red Sox. But they need to do something to make up for this, because yeah, I mean, I almost gets lost. They're going to be losing Teoscar Hernandez probably. Although, I mean, it'd be great if they could retain him in some way. But there's intriguing bats out there. Like I said, you got guys like Candelario and Chapman, and then there's Jorge Soler, and obviously there's Altani. But like, there's so many guys out there that I think you just traded a guy who was going to get 11 million next year, and they know now here's your opportunity to upgrade. So if they don't upgrade, this trade looks much worse. But I'm curious to see how Dipoto will respond to this.
If they upgrade, this trade is going to be justified.
Yes.
And I will take back everything that I've said. Until then, to quote CM Punk, stop me when I'm telling lies. Anyway, let's move on to our next segment here. And I do want to make sure I say it one more time. I like Dipoto. I like what a lot of things that Dipoto has done. This is one that has left a lot of people hurt, me included. So let's move on to our next segment here. So speaking of trade candidates, we've compiled a list of a couple of trade candidates that we think have at least a decent chance of being moved, or at least some of the more interesting ones. Here, there are some impact players on here, a couple interesting ideas as well. And we're just going to kind of talk about where we think these guys are going to go if they are moved at all. And I think let's just swing for the fences on number 1 here. A guy that was traded not too long ago and is still considered one of the best pure hitters right now in baseball. That's Juan Soto. There's a lot of talk that he's going to get traded away from San Diego. Do you see an actual trade happening here? Because to me right now, I think it's possible, but I also think there could be just a lot of smokescreen happening here.
Well, really, I think I need to see what dominoes fall in free agency. Remember, they have a couple of key free agents in Josh Hader and Blake Snell. And I feel like if they, let's say they lose both of them, which I think is likely, then that definitely increases the chances that Soto gets dealt, in my opinion. I think right now, I'd say it's about 50-50 if he gets traded. I mean, you got to remember, he's only 24. Or actually, he just turned 25 recently. So he's only 25. I mean, he's coming off another great year, 35 homers, which is a career high. Only a 930 OPS. Oh my God! Like, what are you going to do? That's such a down year for him. I mean, his career OPS is 946, still 158 OPS plus, still walking. He walked more than he struck out. He's got nearly a 19% walk rate. He's such a great talent with the bat in his hands. But the thing is, I don't know what teams are going to be willing to give up what the Padres want to receive, considering that he is going to be a free agent soon. So I think really it's if they can't negotiate an extension with him, and if they're going to lose both those key free agents, then yes, he does get dealt. Just a general list of teams that maybe could pony up for him. The Yankees potentially, I think they'd probably have to hemorrhage their farm system, which is it's already it's not great. Let's just put it that way. I could see maybe a team like the Mets. The Mets I know are going to be aggressive at some point. I could also see, the Mariners have the assets to do it. It's just a matter of will they do it. So if I were to pick a team, I'm not sure what team will get him, but I think there's at least a 50% chance that he does get dealt this offseason.
Yeah, I could see that, and I think I'm inclined to agree with you as well. And the one thing I will say though is that I think that when it comes to a trade market for him right now, I do think that the price is going to be significantly lower than what the Padres gave up to get him. Because, like you said, he's on the last year of a deal. The team that trades for him is going to have to be able to re-sign him. Like, not a question. He's gonna if you're
Easily.
giving any level of like prospects and MLB ready players, you've got to be ready to sign this guy to like a 12-year deal. Something like that. Like
at
a
least 12.
huge deal. So a team's gonna need to be able to pony up both of those prospects, players, and then be able to also go and sign him afterwards. So there's a lot of intrigue about where he could go. And I think my two biggest options are the same ones you said. As much as I don't want to see him in a Yankees uniform, can you imagine an outfield that has both Soto and Judge in it?
I mean, it'd be terrifying.
Offensively terrifying.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, that in a sport like baseball, unfortunately, you need more than two players on your roster. And as great as Aaron Judge and Juan Soto might be, there's still 7 other spots in the lineup and a pitching staff.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the Yankees would have to give Drew Thorpe in this deal, who is, the reigning minor league pitcher of the year. So
that's fair.
That's the thing, is that the Yankees, I'm sure, like everyone lists them as like the top contender for Soto, but they'd have to give up so much probably. That's the thing, is that maybe it won't be as much as what the Padres gave up to get him from the Nats, but it's not going to be a small amount to get him,
Yeah, no, 100%. The other team that was going to bring him was the one that you said. The Mariners are actually a prime candidate, I think, on this one. They've got the money to do something.
Pitching.
They've got the pitching to trade in, and like a lot of people have been talking about which one would you rather trade between Brian Wu and Bryce Miller, and in my opinion, that's a very easy choice. That Wu should be the one that you trade.
You might have to look at trading Emerson Hancock too.
Yeah, that's it. That's the part where it gets a little for me. Although, to be fair, I think the team's got the pitching to do it, though. So, I mean, because right now your pitching staff is already absolutely loaded. Right now, like, this is maybe a bit of a controversial take, but I do think that Seattle has probably one of the top 5 rotations in all of baseball.
No, no, I think
Um,
that's perfectly reasonable.
yeah, thank you. Anytime I make a take that is a homer take, I always think it's a little bit weird. Anyway, regardless, you've got the pitching to do it. You've even got some good offensive pieces down in the minors and in the majors if you really want to be fair with it. And you've already proven that you are willing to make these kinds of deals because you just did with Julio Rodriguez. So you know what? It's possible. And one thing I will definitely give Dipoto credit for, he's really good with contracts. He has been really good on signing these players, not signing them for too much, but also giving shocker level deals.
You got to also keep in mind that Soto was offered 15 years and 440 million before the or by the Nationals before he got traded, and he rejected it. So whatever team does get him is going to have to make him a massive, massive offer. And I almost wonder if it's going to be a condition of the deal that he has to get an extension uh, with whatever team he gets, because I know that or whatever team he gets traded to, because I know that in the past that I remember when the Mets traded R.A. Dickey, and also when they traded for Johan Santana, like it was part of the deal that these guys needed to get extended in order for the trade to go through. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing, whoever does end up with Juan Soto is probably going to want to extend him too. It's just I wonder if he already turned down one extension, what type of extension he will want.
I don't think so much it's about the money. I think it was more that he wanted out of Washington D.C.
I mean, it was a
And
rough situation for the team at the time.
mm, yeah, and I think that's probably why is that he knew that he wanted to play for a team right now because he knows that right now he is one of the best pure hitters in all of baseball. And he didn't want to waste those years watching a Nationals team try to rebuild around him. He wanted to try and, win now, which to be fair is fully acceptable. So honestly, I think if you even offer the exact same deal to him now, if you were a team like, say, the Mariners or the Yankees, I think he would accept at that point, just because at that point you're still winning. So you're on a winning team at that point, and you're not in rebuild mode. You are in very much playoff window mode.
Yeah,
So
I
with
agree.
yeah, so with that, let's head on to our next one, and this one a little bit more interesting. We're going to a pitcher this time here. That's Tyler Glasnow. His name has been thrown around a lot on the trade block. And Mac, I'm just going to be honest here on this point. This one feels a lot like James Paxton syndrome. A guy that has got all the talent in the world, that when healthy is one of the most dominant pitchers out there, but it's that when healthy that matters.
Yeah,
Whereas arm has the structural integrity of paper tissue. And he has yet to throw, what was it? He has yet to throw 150 innings in a season,
he's yet to
something
throw
like
more than
that.
120.
Exactly, 120, and yet when he does pitch, he is absolutely electric. It is mastery at work watching him pitch. The problem is he's not on the mound a lot of the time. He's injured, and he's very injury prone as well. So how do you think that affects a deal trying to trade for him? Because that's obviously the big condition here, is that if you're trading for him, you're banking that he is not going to be injured, but that has to lower the value.
The other thing is that he's going to be on the last year of his contract. He's making 25 million on that deal, and he's the definition of high risk, high reward. When he's
Mm-hmm.
on the field, he's electric. I mean, his batted ball data even showed, like last year he had a 3.53 ERA, but he had a 2.91 FIP, a 2.75 xFIP. I mean, his ground ball rate was up, his fly ball rate was down, his average exit velocity against was down, his hard hit rate was down. Yes, his fastball took a step back in velocity and it wasn't as effective, but his breaking pitches were fantastic. I mean, his curveball gets whiffs at a rate over 50%. His slider is nasty. Like he's got one of the best. He's got some of the best stuff in all of baseball, but can he stay on the field? I think it's very likely he gets dealt, just given that he's on the last year of his contract, and the Rays tend to do this where before a player's contract expires, they look to deal him. And there's so many teams that could use pitching. Not to beat a dead horse, but the Mets they have 40% of a starting rotation right now. So I think if
Mhm.
I'm looking at teams that will be in on him, I think the Mets for sure. I also would add the Braves and the Cardinals. Like we mentioned earlier, the Cardinals have way more work to do with that rotation. So I could see the Cardinals. And then if I'm looking at American League teams, I think, I could see the Rangers looking at them. The Rangers, I think, we don't know if they're going to have Jordan Montgomery next year. We don't know what Max Scherzer is going to be. So I think I could see the Rangers looking at him too to add to that rotation. So I think he's definitely going to get dealt, and there are a lot of suitors out there. It's just a matter, can he stay healthy?
Mac, I don't know how you do it, but you seem to get my teams that I was thinking as well in your
Oh yeah,
bit
of
there.
course.
My top two teams that I was thinking of were the Cardinals and the Rangers. The Cardinals for the same kind of purpose of we were talking earlier that they are very high risk, high reward um style of starting rotation. What more high risk, high reward guy can you get than Tyler Glasnow? So I think that honestly, for the joke, he kind of fits it, even though I think that the Cardinals really need to get more of a stable guy that is going to get at least 175 innings, something like that. But the other one was the Rangers, because the Rangers are now, that's really, they're still the biggest hole right now, is that they really do need some more starting pitching. They've got some good ones, don't get me wrong, but if they make a trade to get a big starting pitcher and go for Glasnow, they have the depth overall to make it work in case anything happens to him. But he is still he would be one of their top guys overall, like not a doubt, not a question. As long as he stays healthy is always the case. I'm gonna differ from your argument here though a little bit. And I'm going to say that there's like maybe a 20% chance he gets traded. And here's the reason why. I think that overall, when it comes to Glasnow, I think that the Rays are going to want to trade him. And I think the other teams are going to want him. But I don't think the asking price is going to be met. I think that the Rays are going to be asking for some pretty good stuff overall. Because I don't think you would ever want to give away like a top prospect for a guy like Glasnow. I don't think it is worth that risk to give away it. Because yes, Glasnow is good. He's really, really good. But it doesn't matter if you're good if you're not playing the game. If you're not on the field, it does not matter how good you are. So at that point, like, I think what's going to end up happening, and my just kind of prediction, is that there's going to be a ton of trade talks that'll go on for Glasnow, and he's not going to get traded because I don't think the asking price is going to be met. As much as the Rays will want to trade him and other teams will want to get his services, the Rays are going to ask for like a top prospect or multiple MLB ready guys, and teams are not going to be able to come up with
I mean, that's the thing. I honestly don't know what the Rays asking price will be though, because his value isn't as high as it once was, and I think they acknowledge that. So really, I actually don't think that it's going to take as much as we think. Maybe it will take a top 100 prospect or multiple top 30 prospects from an organization, but I think it won't take as much as, say if this was 2021 or 2020, he would have commanded way more. So that's why I think actually a team is going to come to an agreement with the Rays because his value has depreciated just enough where the Rays can make a reasonable ask, and I think it'll be easier to negotiate a deal for him.
well, we'll see what happens then for going forward. And for our last candidate, it's not one player that we're talking about. We're kind of lumping an entire team in this category, and that is the Chicago White Sox, who have already said basically, hey, we're fire selling. Offer it, and we'll see what we can do. And that means that it's not just like guys like Cease or Eloy Jimenez. They're even talking about guys like Louis Bob that could potentially get traded. So, Mac, I mean, what do you see right now? Do you think that we're going to see multiple trades? Do we think we're going to see a lot of these guys gone before next year? Like, because I feel like when we're talking about an entire team, there isn't one other like team that's going to be a trade target for them. But how many of these guys do you think are going to be gone before we start the 2024 season?
Oh, it seems like Dylan Cease is like it seems like he's a surefire bet to get traded. Like I said, there's
Mhm.
so many teams that need pitching right now that he walks a lot of guys, but I mean so does Blake Snell, and he just won the Cy Young award. So I think Cease, in my opinion, I think Cease will get packaged with Jimenez, who is he's got great power. He strikes out a lot, but I mean when he's on the field, he hits the ball very hard and hits it very far. The issue is he gets injured a lot.
Mhm.
So I think Cease and Jimenez I can see getting packaged together in a deal, and I mean that could probably get the White Sox a lot because I feel like one of those guys on their own will not get the White Sox enough. And this is a team that lost 101 games. They have a new GM, Chris Getz. He said they're open for business. I don't know if Robert will necessarily get traded just because, there are a couple of red flags about him, which is that he walks at a very low rate and his strikeout rate was 28% this year, which is rather high. But I also don't know if any team is going to be willing to meet their demand. That being said, I can definitely see a guy like Yohan Moncada getting moved. Andrew Vaughn. Those are two guys who are relatively young, who haven't quite met expectations yet. Um, Gavin Sheets, I think he'll be gone. If anyone wants the Yasmani Grandal's contract, I believe he's going to be in the last year of his deal. So maybe someone, takes a flyer on him. Mike Clevenger, I know he has kind of a checkered resume, but I think Clevenger and Kopech, I can see both those guys getting moved. Really, it's such a mess on the south side of Chicago right now that I definitely see this team. I can see them losing 100 games again next year, and B, it's going to be a very very different looking roster. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of moves coming from the White Sox.
I think the hardest trade for them to be able to pull off will be for Louis Bob. But on that at that same kind of clip, right? I think they're going to aggressively shop him because like he is a franchise level guy. He is a one of the best outfielders in all of baseball right now, defensively, offensively. He's the full pack. But in order to get Luis Robert here, you're going to have to give up a lot to get Luis Robert
He's
Jr.
also only 25. That's the other thing.
Exactly. Like he is going to be a massive deal if he gets traded, and it's for that reason that I think the Cubs are going to be aggressively shopping him right now. Because of that, they're like, all right, we're at a fire sale. He was one of the best players in baseball last year and has been on a steady uptick since he finished second place in Rookie of the Year voting. Sorry, but he's been playing an amazing baseball, and I think they're going to try and sell high on him right now. This is the highest his trade value has been. So if you're gonna go full fire sale, you might as well do it, and you might as well try to get the best deal that you can possibly get. And I think that at that point, you may try to put him in with like a Dylan Cease or something like that. You probably wouldn't do Eloy just because positions, but like a deal that's like Robert and Cease together, I think would fetch a huge package together.
Yeah, the thing is that if they try to package those two together, that's a point where I don't know if any team's going to meet the asking price. That's the issue.
That's very
So
true.
it's like, I think back. I mean, I'm surprised that anyone met the asking price for the Nationals when they traded Scherzer and Turner in the same deal. But
Yeah.
I mean, I just I think that Cease and Jimenez is like the right package of players where a team will be willing to meet what they will a team will be able to negotiate a reasonable package. Yes, it'll probably include at least one top 100, if not top 50 prospect in baseball, but it's not like they're going to have to trade like, their five top prospects to get those guys.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, you can see it maybe being that Cease and Eloy are in one package, and then Robert will be traded separately. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. But again, I feel like the White Sox. The tough part is that Robert is the type of guy you want to build around, but kind of like Soto, it's a tough situation where you're going to have one guy who could be the face of the franchise, who's a star player, but he's also going to be suffering on a lot of bad rebuilding teams. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see going forward what's going to happen with these. But that's going to do it for our trade candidates section. Let us know what you guys think about these guys. Do you think they're going to be traded? Do you have any other trade candidates that you want us to talk about on a later show? Hit us up on Twitter at LAR_baseball. But now it is time for everyone's favorite segment. It is time for trivia. And with it just being two people, it's going to be a little bit different. But I'm handing it off right now to Mac. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. So obviously we've reached the off season, which means there's a bunch of moves being made and stuff. So I've decided I'm going to run back one of my old segments. I know you're probably used to that, me reusing ideas for trivia, but in the
How
past
original.
I've done the transaction game. We're going to do that again today, where
Okay.
I read Alex a player's transaction history, and then he buzzes in and tells me what player he thinks it is. There are 8 players. We could do 3 strikes, or we'll see how it goes.
Just see how many points I get. Yeah.
Exactly. Let's do that.
All right, let's rock
I'm
and
going to
roll.
start with the first player. So this player, it begins on June 7th, 2004, drafted by the Detroit Tigers in the first round, second pick of the 2004 amateur draft. Player signs October 25th, 2004. Then the next transaction is August 31st, 2017, traded by the Detroit Tigers with the player to be named later to the Houston Astros for Franklin Perez, Daz Cameron, and Jake Rogers. The Detroit Tigers sent Juan Ramirez to the Astros to complete the trade. November 3rd, 2021, granted free agency. March 12th, 2022, signed as a free agent with the Houston Astros. November 9th, 2022, granted free agency. December 7th, 2022, signed as a free agent with the New York Mets. August 1st, 2023, traded by the New York Mets to the Houston Astros for Ryan Clifford and Drew Gilbert. And that is the extent of his transaction history to this date.
What? Oh, is that Verlander?
Yes, it is Justin Verlander.
Yeah, let's go.
You're on the board. All right.
There we go. We're 1 for 1. All right. It's only going downhill from here. The fact that it took me that long to figure out that one, where I'm like, wait a minute, we're just going back and forth between the Astros and all that. But
exactly.
Right.
I mean,
to be fair, I was honestly thinking it was like JD Martinez for a while. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right.
Nah, because Martinez started with the Astros and then ended up on Detroit.
Yeah, that's what I think where my mind got a little bit mixed up at.
Yeah, spoiler alert: JD Martinez is not one of the players in this video.
Darn.
All right, the next player, June 1st, 1995, drafted by the Kansas City Royals in the second round of the 1995 amateur draft. Player signed June 5th that year. The next one, June 24th, 2004, traded as part of a 3-team trade by the Kansas City Royals to the Houston Astros. The Oakland Athletics sent Mark Teahan and Mike Wood to the Kansas City Royals. The Houston Astros sent Octavio Dotel to the Oakland A's. And the Houston Astros sent John Buck and Cash to the Kansas City Royals. October 28th, 2004, granted free agency. January 13th, 2005, signed as a free agent with the New York Mets. July 28th, 2011, traded by the New York Mets with Cash to the San Francisco Giants for Zach Wheeler. October 30th, 2011, granted free agency. December 23rd, 2011, signed as a free agent with the St. Louis Cardinals. October 31st, 2013, granted free agency. December 19th, 2013, signed as a free agent with the New York Yankees. August 1st, 2016, traded by the New York Yankees to the Texas Rangers for Nick Green, Eric Swanson, and Dylan Tate. November 3rd, 2016, granted free agency. December 5th, 2016, he signs his last contract, signed as a free agent with the Houston Astros. Then at the end of the 2017 season, he retired.
Is that Beltran?
That is correct. That is Carlos Beltran.
Let's go. I'll be honest, I was lost the entire way with that trade. And then at the very end, I'm like, okay, what player retired in 2017 with the Astros? I'm like, all right, Beltran, got it.
Yeah. So that's the thing is Beltran, I mean, because he started with Kansas City, and then he had that amazing run with the Astros in '04
Mhm.
before signing his contract with the Mets. And I'll say that to this day, he's the greatest free agent signing in team history. I think
That makes sense.
if he goes into the Hall of Fame, which I think he should, he'll go in as a Met, or he should at least. Anyways, next up, we have a pretty simple one. There are only two real transactions on this guy's
Okay.
on this guy's page. So June 1st, 1995. So same draft as Beltran, drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays in the first round, 17th pick of the 1995 amateur draft. Player signed June 30th. The next one, December 16th, 2009, traded by the Toronto Blue Jays with cash to the Philadelphia Phillies for Travis d'Arnaud, Kyle Drabeck, and Michael Taylor. October 31st, 2013, granted free agency, signs a one-day contract with the Toronto Blue Jays to retire.
Is that? Oh wait, no, it's definitely not. My first thought was Jose Bautista, but I know that's not right. Um, that one's tough. I don't actually know off the top of my head. Yeah, I know it's wrong. I'm gonna say Bautista.
Yeah, it's definitely not Jose Bautista.
Yeah,
It's Roy
yeah.
Halladay.
Oh yeah, it's Halliday. Yeah, you're
Bautista's
right.
transaction history is awfully
You're
complicated
right.
because he was
Yeah,
DFA'd and cut like so many
yeah,
times
that's
before he
fair.
established himself.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair. I also, to be fair, Bautista also was on the Pirates, I think, for a time too.
he
So I'm
was
like,
on the Mets, the Pirates, the Braves, the Phillies, the Orioles. I think the Devil Rays for a little bit. Like the teams played hot potato with him for a while until he got to Toronto.
yeah,
Um,
fair enough.
all right, let's move on to the next guy then. So all right, you're two
Two for
for three
three.
to start.
Okay, that's not bad.
Batting 667.
You
All
take
right,
those.
so this one, July 2nd, 1995. Wow, same year for
I was about to
the
say, like,
last
geez, you
three
really like
guys now.
1995, don't you?
Signed by the Houston Astros as an amateur free agent. December 3rd, 1999, drafted by the Florida Marlins from the Houston Astros in the 1999 Rule 5 draft. December 13th, 1999, traded by the Florida Marlins with cash to the Minnesota Twins for Jared Camp. February 2nd, 2008, traded by the Minnesota Twins to the New York Mets for Carlos Gomez, Deolis Guerra, Philip Umber, and Kevin Mulvey. November 1st, 2013, granted free agency. March 4th, 2014, signed as a free agent with the Baltimore Orioles. October 30th, 2014, granted free agency. February 26th, 2015, signed as a free agent with the Toronto Blue Jays. That's the end of his transaction history.
Yeah, I'm real. I have no
I'll
idea.
preface this by saying he didn't actually play a major league game past 2012.
Okay.
He got hurt rehabbing from injuries the next couple contracts.
Jeez, poor guy. Um, what during in the year 2008, where was he playing at?
By
According to
then
your
that year, that March, he got traded. Sorry, that February he got traded to the Mets
a trade to the
by the
Mets
Twins.
by the Twins. Is that hmm. I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. Is that Johan?
Yes, it is. It is
Let's
Johan Santana.
go! Woo! I had to pull
That
that
was a
one
good
out.
one.
Woo!
All right. Well, the next one I'll tell you. I mean, now that I look at his transaction history on Baseball Reference, this is going to be a layup for you. So,
I hope so.
um,
Don't say that because otherwise I'll miss it.
all right. Well, if you don't get it from this first one, I almost consider an L because here's the first
Okay.
transaction listed here. November 30th, 2000. Purchased by the Seattle Mariners from Oriksu, Japan Pacific.
Oh, oh, yeah. Do I just say Ichiro there?
Yes,
Or
perfect. You're
okay.
good. Ichiro. All right,
Because
so you're batting 800.
it was from the Oryx Blue Wave back then, which are now the Oryx
Yes. They're
Buffaloes.
the Buffaloes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, all right, moving on. This one is not as easy as that. I'll tell you that much.
Fair enough. I'm batting 800 right now, so I'm surprised I've even gotten this far.
Well, yeah, I mean you're off to a good start. You've guaranteed yourself at least a 500 record.
We take
Um,
those.
all right, so this one, June 5th, 1989, drafted by the Cincinnati Reds in the 11th round of the 1989 amateur draft. Player signed June 9th, 1989. November 17th, 1992, drafted by the Florida Marlins from the Cincinnati Reds as the eighth pick in the 1992 expansion draft. June 24th, 1993, traded by the Florida Marlins with Andres Berriman and Jose Martinez to the San Diego Padres for Rich Rodriguez and Gary Sheffield. October 28th, 2005, granted free agency. December 7th, 2005, signed as a free agent with the San Diego Padres. November 1st, 2008, granted free agency. January 8th, 2009, signed as a free agent with the Milwaukee Brewers. November 2nd, 2010, granted free agency, and he would then retire.
Is that Tony Gwynn?
Nope. Is that your official guess?
Yeah, that was my guess. Yeah,
It is not Tony Gwynn. It is another Padres legend, though. It is Trevor Hoffman.
Oh, that's off. All right, fair enough.
Which, if you wouldn't believe, Trevor Hoffman was originally a shortstop.
Oh,
Did not
wow.
pan out as a shortstop, became a very good reliever. And also,
Yeah.
Padres fans despised him initially because he was traded for Gary Sheffield.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, dang, okay.
All right, moving on. Um, so you're what, 4-2 so far? All right, this
Yeah.
is another guy actually with a rather short transaction history. So June 4th, 2002, drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers in the first round, the seventh pick of the 2002 amateur draft. Player signed June 17th, 2002. October 30th, 2011, granted free agency. January 26th, 2012, signed as a free agent with the Detroit Tigers. November 20th, 2013, traded by the Detroit Tigers with cash to the Texas Rangers for Ian Kinsler. October 4th, 2017, released by the Texas Rangers. He had to retire because of a neck injury.
Yeah, that's Prince Fielder.
Yes, that is Prince Fielder. Correct.
Yeah, honestly, to be fair, I figured out that one when you talked about going to Detroit from Milwaukee. I'm like, okay, around that time, that was the biggest trade. Or the biggest move, excuse me, the biggest move.
Well, that was the thing is that was the same offseason that Pujols was a free agent and Jose Reyes.
Oh
And
my
like I
gosh.
remember Reyes and Pujols both signed, I think, in December, and then Fielder held out until January and got a massive contract from the Tigers.
Yeah.
Um,
I was so scared the day that he signed with the Rangers as a Mariner fan. I'm like,
oh, when he got traded, oh
oh
my god,
crap. I was
I
like,
just
oh
remember it.
crap.
It caught me off guard because he was only 2 years into a 9-year deal, and then they were just like, all right, I mean, Ian Kinsler was like one of the faces of the Rangers
Yeah.
franchise,
That's what
and
scared me. I'm like, wow, you're trading away Kinsler? Really? Okay.
all right, so for the last guy, this guy has quite the transaction history. He is quite the
Jeff Francoeur.
journeyman. It is not Jeff Francoeur, I'll tell you that
Octavio's
much.
Hotel.
All
Okay.
right, here we
Anyway,
go.
sorry.
June 26, 1993, signed by the then Cleveland Indians as an amateur free agent. June 27, 2002, traded by the Cleveland Indians with Tim Drew to the Montreal Expos for Cliff Lee, Brandon Phillips, Grady Sizemore, and Lee Stevens.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Okay.
probably the most notable transaction he's been a part of.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they got in that deal.
January 15th, 2003, traded by the Montreal Expos with Jorge Nunez to the Chicago White Sox for Rocky Biddle, Orlando Hernandez, Jeff Lafer, and cash. October 27th, 2003, granted free agency. December 10th, 2003, signed as free agent with the Anaheim Angels. October 29th, 2007, granted free agency. February 24th, 2008, signed as a free agent with the Boston Red Sox. October 31st, 2008, granted free agency. January 14th, 2009, signed as a free agent with the Chicago White Sox. September 16th, 2009, released by the Chicago White Sox. Doesn't get signed until January 26th, 2011, when he is signed by the New York Yankees. October 30th, 2011, granted free agency. January 24th, 2012, signed as a free agent with the Oakland Athletics. October 29th, 2012, granted free agency. November 3rd, 2012, signed as a free agent with the Oakland Athletics. October 31st, 2013, granted free agency. December 14th, 2013, signed as a free agent with the New York Mets. November 2nd, 2015, granted free agency. December 18th, 2015, signed as a free agent with the New York Mets again. November 3rd, 2016, granted free agency. November 17th, 2016, signed as a free agent with the Atlanta Braves. July 4th, 2017, released by the Atlanta Braves. July 7th, 2017, signed as free agent with the Minnesota Twins. November 2nd, 2017, granted free agency. February 4th, 2018, signed as a free agent with the Texas Rangers. March 24th, 2018, released by the Texas Rangers. March 26th, 2018, signed as a free agent again with the Texas Rangers. October 29th, 2018, granted free agency. September 17th, 2023, voluntarily retired from the New York Mets. That is the end of his major league transaction history. I will say that he is pitching in another baseball league currently. It is just not the majors.
Is that Bartolo?
It is Bartolo Colon.
Let's go! Honestly, to be fair, I had no idea until you said that. So you said that last little bit, and then you're like, oh yeah, he's pitching Dubai right now.
Yes, he's currently pitching for Baseball United. That is awesome, by the way. This man is 50 years old.
And he still pitched 3 innings.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think that's a fantastic experiment that they're running over there.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about it another time at this point.
So yeah, that was a good effort from you. You batted 750.
I will. You know what? I'll take 750. I expected to be batting 250. So I'm glad I got that.
I tried to go with somewhat notable players. You know.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And
I'll give it to you that you got Bartolo because I thought that was the most difficult one.
Honestly, what like sealed that one for me, aside from that, was I was trying to find a link between that and then the big trade with the Expos. And I'm like, there was one big name that was in that he got put over there for it. It was shipping away all of the talent to Cleveland to get.
Well, it's because the Expos were at the time ready to get contracted at the end of the year.
Yep, I remember
so
that.
It was you have to go all in or you're never going to play again. Like it's
and then they didn't get contracted.
They didn't get contracted, and they also didn't make the playoffs either. So
legendary.
Sometimes mortgaging the future and trading your future all-stars isn't always worth it. Just
I believe also as
word to the wise.
Wasn't Asdrubal Cabrera also in that trade?
No, but they Asdrubal Cabrera they got from the Mariners, man.
I remember. I remember there was another. Oh yeah, no, I'm getting the mix up with someone else I thought of.
Anyway, I think Orlando Cabrera may have been involved in a trade. I forget. I know he was an Expo.
Something like that. Anyway, thank you so much for trivia. That was a fun time, Mac. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed putting that together.
Good deal. All right. Well, we're now down to our final segment of the shows. We like to end every podcast with the moment to ourselves where we take a minute, just talk about whatever's on our mind. It does not have to be baseball related, but it absolutely can be. Mac, would you like to go first or would you like me to?
You can go first. I got to come up with something.
All right, here we go. So I will start mine in 3, 2, 1, begin. So not a lot of people know this about me, but I'm a big wrestling fan. I really like wrestling. I haven't talked about it a whole ton, but I got to watch Survivor Series War Games the other night, and I saw something that I legitimately thought a number of years ago would have been impossible, and that was CM Punk coming back to the WWE, and it was amazing how they did. There was so much talk about that it was going to happen leading up to the show, but there was so many more smoke screen signals about it, and so many other ways that people are saying it's not going to happen. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen either. But at the very end of the show, they even put up the title card in the bottom right-hand corner to throw people off for just a little bit longer. And then finally, Cult of Personality hits, and everyone just loses their mind. I may not be the biggest Punk fan. I really like him, though. But to see him coming back into WWE is very surreal. All right. That is my time for this. Mac, are you ready to go?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Your time begins in 3, 2, 1, begin.
So, I decided I might as well just talk about Baseball United a little bit. I think this is, I think it's great that baseball is becoming at least a bit more of a global game, because I feel like outside of, there's North America, obviously, it's still decently popular, I would say. I mean, it is our national pastime. You have a decent amount of baseball in South America. So the Western Hemisphere is very much in tune with baseball. And then you have obviously those big baseball powerhouses in Asia, like Japan and South Korea. But I feel like, the fact that we're putting a baseball league out, in Southeast Asia and in the Middle East, I think it's awesome for the sport. Plus, you're getting these former big leaguers to sort of come out of retirement in ways, like Bartolo Colon and Robinson Cano. You know that it's a fun thing. I think Pablo Sandoval too. You have the gold ball, the power up where the runs are doubled all of a sudden. I think this is a lot of fun. And I'm curious to see how this league does. It's only 4 teams. I haven't really had time to watch it, but I think this is a fun thing, and maybe I'll experiment and watch a little bit of it. I kind of just miss baseball as a whole, so maybe I'll either watch Baseball United or the Australian Baseball League for a bit.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, but that's gonna do it for our show. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter, the main account at LAR_baseball. You can go follow me on Twitter at the Sports Guy 242. Also go follow Mac at Mathias_A_K. And why not go follow Splash on Twitter? Wasn't here today because he's not feeling too well. But go follow him on Twitter at Mr. Splashman19. But from all of us here at Losses Above Replacement, we want to thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe. And I hope to see you all real soon.